Sarah's Stampin' Retreat. Today we're going to be focusing on some more masculine cards. Obviously they can be used for both sexes, but just something that kind of speaks more to that masculine handwriting. The boys in my life don't really enjoy kind of like the more typical things that you find on stamp sets, like golf and on fishing, like that kind of thing that I've seen before on stamp sets. That's not really them. So I'm going to try and kind of make some cards that are more about kind of shapes and patterns and that kind of thing, so that you can kind of give them to most people. I use this best year stamp set for sentiment. So I'm going to make a couple of Father's Day cards. You've got to the world, you're a dad, to me you're the world, you've got Happy Father's Day, and use this Happy Birthday too. So for the first card that I'm going to make today, I'm going to use these stitch star dies, and you can see here, I'm actually not going to use this bit, I'm going to use this for a different card, but I've put it here so you can see what I've done. So I've used the largest star to cut out this outside piece, and then I've used this second star in this group to cut out this piece, and then I'm just going to take this out. So we're going to use the star and then the outline, and this is copper foil sheet that I've cut to 4.5 inches square and then cut that out of the middle, and then this is a 5-inch square basic black card blank. So we're just going to make a really simple card like this, and I'm going to use this stamp, which I really like, and I think that you could use it for Father's Day, you could use it for like your dad's birthday, something like that. And then I'm just going to heat emboss that in copper embossing powder to go with this onto some basic black cardstock. So I'm just going to swipe my embossing buddy over it to make sure that nothing sticks that shouldn't. You don't want the embossing powder sticking to some greasy fingerprints or something that you've left on it. Then I'm going to stamp my sentiment. I'm just going to pour over some copper embossing powder. So then I'm just going to grab my heat tool, set it to number 2. I'm just going to heat that up. So now we've got this nice copper sentiment. So I'm just having a look at this, I've just heat embossed the same sentiment in gold, because I thought where this is on a dark card, it doesn't show up quite as much as I like, and the gold does. So I think I'm actually going to go with the gold with this instead of the copper. So there's my sentiment, and so I've just cut that down, and I've cut a piece of copper foil sheet 1/4 inch bigger. So I'm just going to stick that onto there. Then I'm just going to glue this onto my card. So then I'm just going to add some dimensionals and stick this in the middle. So I'm just trying to decide on the positioning of this. I think I quite like it in the middle. I was originally going to put this down here and then pop it down here, but I don't think I like that layout as much, so I'm going to pop it in the middle of the star. So then I just want to make a couple of really simple ones, just showcasing some more masculine designer series papers. So the first one we're going to use is this Simply Elegant designer series paper. And you can see we're using this piece at the back here. So it's got this gorgeous foil on this side, but we're going to use this side because I quite like this for masculine cards. So we're going to make a really, really simple layout. So I'm going to use that same dad sentiment as I used for the last card. And I'm going to use basic grey ink because that's the colour that's on here. And I'm going to stamp onto a bit of very vanilla cardstock. And that's because the colours in this paper are basic grey and very vanilla. So I'm just going to cut that down. So here's my sentiment cut down, and I've cut a piece of basic grey cardstock 1/4 inch bigger as well. So then I'm just going to glue all my layers together. I've got a 1/4 inch wide piece of basic grey cardstock here that I'm just going to stick across the bottom of the paper. That's going to go behind my sentiment. And I'm just going to chop the edges off. And I can glue this onto the cream piece of cardstock. So I've just realised I haven't given you the sizes for these. So this piece of DSP from the Simply Elegant pack, that is 3 3/4 inches square. Then I've got some Very Vanilla behind it, that's 4 inches square. Then this piece of basic grey is 4 3/4 inches square. And then I've got the 5 inch square card base, and that's made of thick Very Vanilla cardstock. So I'm only using 2 colours for the whole thing. So I'm just going to use some of the outside of my dimensionals just to pop up that cream layer. And I'll add a few of these in the middle as well. So I'm going to pop that on there. And then I'm just going to pop some more behind my sentiment. And then I'm going to pop that on there. So that's my second card finished. So then this next one is another one using DSP. And for this one I'm using this Expressions in Ink DSP and this gorgeous piece here. So for this one I'm going to use the Happy Birthday to You, and I'm going to emboss that, heat emboss that in gold onto this Evening Evergreen cardstock. And these are really fine sentiments. The actual text on them is really fine, but because our embossing powder is also really fine, you can see it picks up the text really nicely. So let's just heat that up. So that's got a really nice shine to it. So then I'm going to take my tailored tag punch. I'm just going to cut out the Happy Birthday to You. And then I'm going to cut it out again out of just this scrap of gold foil sheet. And then I'm just going to offset those a bit, and I'm just going to glue them together like that. So then I've got an Evening Evergreen card base, so that measures 8 1/4 inches by 5 7/8 inches, and it's scored and folded in half. So that's just half a piece of A4 scored and folded in half. And then this measures 3 1/2 by 5 1/8, and this measures 3 1/4 by 4 7/8 inches. So I'm just going to see where I want this to go. And then I'm just going to stick a piece of tear and tape across here where I want my ribbon to go. And actually I'm just going to make it a little bit longer than the paper. I'm going to pop it over, and then I'm just going to wrap a little bit around the back as well. And then I'm just going to peel the tear and tape off. And here I've got some of the Evening Evergreen chevron weave ribbon. So I'm just going to pop some on the back like that over the tape, and I'm just going to wrap it around the front, and I'm just going to wrap it around the back a little bit at the other side, and I can just chop off the end. Then I'm going to glue that onto the piece of gold foil sheet. And then I'm going to glue that onto my card front. So this is just a really simple card. It's kind of a fun one to make, and I think it makes a really nice impact. And to be honest, even though I've called this Masculine Cards because it's kind of with those more masculine colours, and it's intended so that you could give them to guys. I equally think that if you just change some of the sentiments, I mean you don't even have to change the sentiment on this one, then they're perfect for ladies in your life as well. So there we go, we've got a really nice cute card. So then for my fourth card, I'm going with black and copper colour scheme again. I do really like the black and copper together. I think based on what I did on my other card, I think I want to use the gold embossing powder again. So I'm going to use this Daisy Lane stamp set, but I'm just going to use this leaf stamp, and I'm going to use that as a background stamp. So I'm going to stamp that all over this piece of black card. So this is 3.5 by 5.25 inches. I'm just going to go over it with my embossing buddy, and then I'm just going to ink up the stamp with my Versamark ink. I'm just going to stamp it all over. You can kind of see where you stamped, so I'm just going to make sure that I stamp all at different angles and I just get quite good coverage. And I just want to make sure that I'm stamping off the sides as well, so that everything just doesn't kind of stop at the edge of the page, because that's where you get kind of, that's where it kind of can look quite unnatural. Then I'm going to pop it on here, and I'm going to pour on my gold embossing powder. Then I'm just going to pop the happy birthday sentiment onto this piece of spare black. And then I'm just going to use my heat tool to melt the embossing powder. Then it hadn't really originally been my intention, but I think I'm actually going to use the same layout for this card as I did the last card. So I'm going to grab my tailored tag punch again. I'm just going to punch that out. And I'm going to punch a piece out of here as well. And then I'm actually going to use some tape to put this onto here, because it's bowing slightly because of the heat, and also I'm sticking it onto a glossy surface, so it just won't stick quite as well with the glue. If all you've got is glue, then just hold it down for longer. I'm just doing this because I don't want to hold it down for a while. Like, you can always stick it underneath a book or something like that, and it will soon like lose its kind of bow and it will stick nicely. I just want this to do really quickly, so I'm using the tape. The only problem with the tape is that there's like no wiggle room, so once you're stuck, you're stuck. So I'm just going to do the same I did on the other one and just offset that a little bit. And then rather than having ribbon on this one, I've just got this strip of copper foil sheet. It's probably roughly 3/4 inch wide. I'm just going to glue it onto the front of the card. So I'm just going to add that onto there. So we've got this one that we did before, and then this one that we've just done, so you can see the difference between, so obviously they're the same type of layout, but the different colours and the embossing rather than the DSP gives them a bit of a different look. So then for my final card, I'm going with navy and red. I'm going with those same star dies that we used for the first card. So I've got a Poppy Parade A6 card blank, so 8¼ by 5 7/8 inches scored and folded in half. This piece is 1/2 inch smaller than the card front. That is Night of Navy. Then I've got another piece of Poppy Parade, and that is 3½ by 5 inches. And I've got all of these stars that I've cut with those dies that I showed you earlier. So because there's so many dies in that set, it looks like I've done loads of die cutting with it. So it actually took me 2 passes through the machine. You'll see they're mostly different sizes, but then I've got a couple this size because I cut one out in the first pass and then I cut one out the middle of here. So we've got bits and pieces. So I've kind of used a lot of these dies, and like for example this one is 2 dies, so I think it might be this one. Let's see. Yeah, so this one is this die, and this one from the other set. So I've obviously run that through in 2 different runs because they won't fit on there together, but by using the 2 that are very closely aligned, that they don't even go inside each other, then you get that thin one. Whereas this one, I've used this die, but then the other one that I've used is from the same set, so there's a bigger gap between them, so you get this thicker border. So they're all cut out. You can see these detailed ones are these ones. You get 1, 2, 3, 4 sizes of those ones. You can see those 4 sizes there. This is the tiniest star here. I haven't used the very big ones, so I've got a lot of different stars there. And I just want to glue them all over this piece of Poppy Parade to kind of create a bit of a background type thing. So I'm going to put them off the side a little bit as well, so we can chop those bits off afterwards. I might layer that one in there, I think. These very delicate ones, you could actually use adhesive sheet, which I always mean to use and then I always forget until after when I'm actually gluing the die cuts, and then I think, oh, I should have used my adhesive sheet, because it is a lot easier for these delicate die cuts. But luckily these ones do have kind of these solid areas at the points of the star and one in the middle, so I'll just use those. Points off those in the back. Then I'm going to cut it into 3 to make 3 panels, and you could have them even, you could have them different, it's entirely up to you. And then I'm going to pop those panels onto here. Then I'm going to stamp my happy birthday to you in Night of Navy ink onto a piece of Poppy Parade cardstock. So I've just popped a 1/4 inch strip of Night of Navy cardstock across there, and I've cut down my sentiment and glued it onto a piece of Night of Navy 1/4 inch bigger. I'm just going to pop that on there on my dimensionals, and then I can glue that onto my card. So that's my final card completed, so let me just bring in the rest of the cards that we've made today. So I hope you enjoyed today's video and you've got some inspiration for making cards for the men in your life. If you did, I'd appreciate you clicking like below, and you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got a new video available. All of the products that we've used for today's video are linked in the description below, and there's also a host code there. So if you pop the host code into your basket before you check out, then I'll send you a free gift after the end of the month. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.